Welcome to Create, Inspire, Repeat. I'm Susan Gifford, Culture and Development Director here at Touchstone Merchandise Group in Mason, Ohio.
And I'm Austin Baker, our Multimedia Director. Today we're talking to disruptive visionaries about their brand stories, their inspirations, and their whys.
That's right. In this podcast, we're talking to people who have created some of the most awesome, electric, and dynamic brands out there, sharing with you what makes them awesome. We hope you're activated, inspired, and have something to take back to talk to your coworkers about. Plan for the future for your company. Consider for the big changes you're looking at right now.
So today we want to talk about parties. Have you ever been to a party?
Been to a party or two?
Been to a party? Okay. You've been to those parties where it's a bunch of your close friends, you're around the table, you guys are just chatting, having a great old time, right?
Yeah, like 5 or 6 of like your closest friends.
Yeah, your close friends, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Well, then more people start showing up. The party gets bigger. More and more groups come, and before you know it, it's a giant house party.
Yeah, you've got people in the, like when you've got people in the kitchen and then people gathered in the hallway taking up space, people on the porch, and it's just like broken up.
Yeah.
Like you can't really communicate with the whole party anymore.
And before you know it, your friend Jeff left, and stuff was going crazy, and stuff gets broken.
Minutes ago. He was here 5 minutes ago. Did somebody call him? So then you're not noticing when there are changes at the party, when people are leaving, when people have started a ping pong game. You know what I mean? But this feeling is kind of the same feeling when you're at a company. You start the company, you work there, and you really love it because it's a small company. But it grows, and 20 years later, you find yourself another cog in an office where you talk to the same 3 or 4 people every day, and you're disengaged because you no longer feel like the company knows who you are.
Yeah. And that's a big thing when you experience growth over time. That's something that happens a lot. And so today we're actually going to be talking to Eric Lyon from SidFactor. SidFactor is a company we work with in the past. They do a lot of our merchandise when it comes to Mountain Standard and a few of our other brands. And they have been experiencing growth over the years. They're 18 years old, so they've had the time to expand and become a bigger company than they were before. But at each fork in the road, they've made a very particular decision, and we'll get into that in today's podcast. So first off, Eric, thanks for joining us. First question I have is, explain SidFactor to us, who you are and what makes you great.
Cool, Austin. Well, thanks for having me on your podcast. But yeah, SidFactor was hatched between my partner, Jason Olden, and I in late 2001. And we were both working inside of larger brands and really looking at the product process and how products were brought to market. And at the time, even a shift in that market as the big box retailer became more and more prevalent, and how our businesses were changing based on their dominance in the marketplace. So we built the company with the original premise. The original business plan was to build private label products for those retailers that we were working with inside of the other brands. So we were seeing the lack of quality and real design execution in the products they were building for themselves. And so again, the original premise, the business plan was to build a team and to build private label products for retailers. The irony of the business as we established the company and got going in 2002, we almost immediately started working with brands and many best-in-class brands. Looking for us to apply what we did well and to be able to put the team that we were starting to build towards truly building branded product for those brands. They were looking to outsource a certain level of services. So, again, the original premise kind of evolved into something else. And then ironically, working probably 7, 8, 9 years worth of business, it then circled around going back to the original premise where we started working with retailers and private label. So entered it thinking we were doing private label, started doing the branded business. Our reputation around the branded business then led us to the original premise, which was doing private label branded stuff.
Can you sort of explain for anyone listening what private label actually means?
Yeah, so most retailers, and I would say we're in a cycle again now where the retailers are offering their customer branded goods. So in our case, it's mostly textile-based stuff, think apparel. They're offering branded apparel to their customer, but those brands, or often labels, are brands that they own. So they're building the product. So take a Dick's Sporting Goods or even a Walmart or even Amazon now. are creating brands of which then they're leveraging that brand onto key categories of product. So most of the time they're using the intel and the data, and more now they're using the data to understand what the customer is responding to in terms of product type, color, price point, things like that. Then they're utilizing those owned assets, brands, to build product. And that's typically, it's called private label or owned brand strategy. And I would say early days, it was private label where the brand meant less. It was really about the product and the price point. And I say it's circling back to that now. We're circling back to now kind of an owned brand strategy where those companies, those brands, those retailers are acquiring real brands with real equity and real position in the marketplace and making product. So it's beyond just price point and product type. It's now also brand, but typically they're owned by the same company. And more often than not, the customer doesn't know whether it's something they're buying from a brand directly or something that get created. I think most customers probably wouldn't know the difference.
That's why I've never heard it described like that, to be honest. Usually Derek throws around the word private label and I'm just like, oh yeah, private label. I know what that means. So you describing it like actually gave me some insight into it.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Private label, I mean, a lot of it there was a lot of margin also for retailers. So, if you can imagine, if you're a Dick's Sporting Goods and you're buying from one of the athletic brands, there's certain margin that you can expect in that classic wholesale type arrangement. If you got a Keystone or a 50 points or 55% or even 60%, that was traditionally looked at as a good margin or the max that you might be able to get in the wholesale model. We're going down the private label route, building your own, controlling the different variables. The margin's attractive. So you could be, 60 or more points ahead. So that's why they do it. They can also promote. They can also put, discounts out there, whether social or flyers. They have more flexibility in how they can promote that product than, say, a national brand. There's certain constraints, suggested retail prices, discount timing, and so forth. So I think those variables have really increased the popularity and frankly, the profitability and enterprise value of a lot of these companies, because as their brand grows, they not only have the retail asset, but they have a branded asset as well that can be sold off, spun off, or scaled up.
Gotcha. Well, give us some insight into kind of your recipe for success. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, of course, it's evolved, as I mentioned, from the original premise. But I think what we intended to build is still, the original idea is still in place today. And it really, it's I think it's fairly cliche, but it was really building a team and a team over time that works well together in a very kind of efficient manner. Usually when our services are engaged, they're not providing us the same amount of time that you might have inside of a brand, an 18-month window or whatever else. So they're expecting things to be done more efficiently, quicker, better. And so for us, it was really, over time, we've just hired more people that kind of fit our methodology and our culture. So number one is clearly, hiring good people that have also grown in our business. And we're often asked who our competitors are, and I really have few, if anybody, that I can say is like us. We've kind of built a unique company with unique, comprehensive set of resources, but still in a small, nimble structure. So we're not a big organization that takes a while to move. You deploy us, we can move immediately, but yet have the resources to do it, thoroughly from start to finish.
I think that's something so unique about SidFactor, and I've noticed us working with you guys over the years is watching you guys work with different clients and how much you offer with how small your team is. Like you were saying, I think that's something us at Touchstone try to do a lot of that when it comes to our creative team and stuff, where we have a structured team and we try to be as efficient as possible. What type of tips or what have you done over the years to sort of cultivate that culture in your team of being like overperformers, being able to accomplish a lot more with a smaller team?
I think one of our biggest advantages is we have a lot of people that have been with us for a long time, and our process and the expectations that we have and what expectations our clients have on us has been the norm. We often look at prospective people to join the team that may be inside of a brand or have been working inside of a brand for a long time. The expectation of what you do on a certain time frame is very different. So one, I think you call it a homegrown group of people. I mean, it came with talents to us, and but a very homegrown team. And then second is the team. There's nobody here on an island that's set up to succeed or fail on their own. Whatever decisions or recommendations we make as an individual represents that of the organization. So there's never a time when I think somebody or a younger person or whatever feels like the fear of failure is such that they're afraid to move. It's again cliche, but I think we always have their back. We're small enough to where one decision represents the decision of the team, and really collaboration would be the last thing. It's small enough. We've had plenty of opportunities to double in size, both in say a revenue or in team, and we found by the nature of our business that right around our scale, call it 10 to 12 people, maybe 15 is the right number, because it affords us a depth of resources, but also the nimbleness and being able to deploy a whole team on a project. I think brands are very happily surprised when they engage us because we mobilize a lot of people against their effort. It's not just an account manager and everything else is behind the curtain. You have contact with the design team, the development team, the strategic people, and they all come in at different phases and times, but we deploy the resources in total to a project. And, the team members have the ability to be creative and have confidence that they're doing the right things because we do collaborate and we have their back and stretching themselves to make recommendations.
I think that mentality of you guys having enough people to put on one project, how many projects do you guys tend to work on at the same time?
I think right now it's a pretty good example of, our norm. I would say there's probably, 5 to 6 different projects at some phase of involvement. We're fortunate now that most, if not all of our customers have multi-season, which is also multi-year engagements. So we know there's a 3-year outlook, a 2-year outlook at a minimum. And as we build those calendars and look at the schedule, we're able to deploy against everything at some level. So everyone's going to have a different contribution. But right now we have 5 different probably projects at different stages. Some are in the beginning where that are either early discussions about where it could go to just approved a sample and ready to go to production.
Well, you've mentioned a couple of things that you do intentionally. You intentionally hire good people that are a good fit for your team. You intentionally do not grow beyond your team that works really well together, even though you've got the opportunity to double in size because of the way that everybody can work on a project together. And you're really intentional about which project you select. You might pick one, but not pick another because it's too similar to the first one you chose. Did you determine these intentional movements when you were first starting the business, or is this something you met and then made a decision about, like, okay, we've got enough business, we could double. Is this a good move for us or not? And then make the decision. So was it reactionary or was it planned like that?
I think, I would like to say it was 100% planned, but I would say a majority of it was planned. And I think we did a lot by feel early on to where, whatever felt right or how we would want to be treated is what we did. So if I was coming to us with a project and the people I was talking to were working on a similar type of brand or my competitor, I would feel weird about it. And we kind of use that measuring stick all along the way to make the decision. But yeah, one of the first intentional decisions was bringing in design people that all weren't cut from the same cloth, meaning they all came out of apparel design school and we brought them in. I mean, still to this day, everyone's got a diverse background and some aren't even in apparel. So we knew we wanted that diversity early on. That was definitely intentional. So I think going back to your question, yes, there was a lot intentional, but I would say after, really starting to get consistent business with repeat customers, they really appreciated how we conducted our business, that we were focused on them. We always say internally, every client that we have, we want them to think that we only work for them. Yeah. So when they're in the building or working with them, you don't see a bunch of other stuff. When we're not pulled away to go do so, making the client the hero is another intentional thing in the beginning. Is, we've won a lot of awards and product rewards, but we try to make the brand the hero, or the people inside that we're working with the hero. So there's been plenty of packs, garments, outerwear, sportswear that the brand has won awards with, that you just have to high five, and we all kind of smile to ourselves, and that was successful. It doesn't have to be us. So that was another very intentional thing, is make the brand the hero, because most customers, they don't think like, kind of dinner party conversation. You meet somebody and tell them what you do, and they're kind of like, what? The North Face doesn't make all their own product, or, Camelback, or you name your brand. There's a little bit of skepticism, and that's great, because people love brands for their reasons, and we want to make sure that continues, and it's not about us. So I don't know, Susan, if that answers your question, but
absolutely,
a lot of very intentional things about people, treating people, how you treat customers, and frankly, COVID was a test of all of that. Yeah. So as this time last year, April, we had meetings really wondering, where is it going to go? What does this mean for our people? What are our customers going to be like? So we immediately started reaching out to all of our partners, and from the beginning said, how do we get through this together? Let's figure it out. From payments and when and structures. And I said, whether we work for 1 day, 100 days, we're going to keep going, whether it's $1 or $100 that you guys are going to pay us. We're going to keep going as we plan. So the partnership, and I think how you conduct yourself in business, that's when it was tested, and we survived with every customer, and every customer survived with us through that time. And now 13 months later, they're saying, let's do more. And so it's a test to those intentions that we set out in the beginning with, and also just how you conduct yourself in business. And if good times are easy, when everyone was wondering if there was going to be any business, is when it got harder, and we made it through with everybody intact.
I mean, you guys kept those relationships. I mean, that makes them want to do more work with you now and work with you in the future. Mm-hmm. That's something with Touchdown. We sort of had the similar thing where we didn't know what was going to happen. We were
you did.
Yeah, we were trying to figure it out as it happened. Things happened here, and we got through it, and now our business is even further along than we thought it would be. So that
better than it was. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
we're proud of the fact that we survived it with every customer and every employee.
We've got a lot of these companies that are starting to see that success again after COVID. When they reach that point where they are really seeing the opportunity and the chance to expand like you did, what are some considerations for them to determine whether or not that's a good move for them? Is because I know when a company really starts to get bigger, there is a point where people who have been at a company for 15 years will go, remember the days when we were a small company and we were all tight and we worked so well together, and now we're huge and nobody talks to each other. So there can be some negatives there if growth isn't managed well. So what are some considerations when you're at that breaking point that people will have to take in before they really make that informed decision to grow or to double in size?
Yeah, I think if I understand your question right, I think the biggest thing for us is, and one of the things that Jason and I said early on, was we didn't want to create what we left, which is just what you described, which is, you're a cog in the wheel, and there's uncertainty and less transparency and all these things. So, we wanted to make sure that we didn't create what we left. And so, the cultural aspect of it was hugely important to us, and we rely on that. So if we feel like any project, whether we've done it with projects or people or growth, that we feel like would jeopardize what we have, and it doesn't complement it or provide a lift for people, whether it's creatively, emotionally, financially, some sort of benefit to the group here, then it wasn't worth doing. Maybe it meant more to the bottom line to do those decisions, but ultimately we felt like if it jeopardized any of those kind of core tenets, which was what we built it on and around the core group and the culture, we would turn it away. And I know it's maybe sometimes unfavorable, and of course we don't have anybody to answer to other than ourselves, but that was the lens that we looked at it most often, was would it change what we have? Is it if it's not improving, the staff and the culture and your experience of being here and working here every day, then we didn't do it.
I think that's such a good way to think about growth is, does it mess with what you already have? And I know you both came from bigger companies where you saw that, where it was come to work, you work on projects, but you didn't have that culture of that small knit group where you guys are passing projects left and right now to each other, working as a group. And I know that's a big part of who you guys are and a big part of your work culture that you have at SidFactor. And I think that's such a hard thing to keep as you grow. And if you grow into like a massive corporation where you have thousands of employees, how do you keep something like that growing? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we could have done it. Again, it goes back to the people. We could, if you had 3x the revenue, which would mean at least 3x the projects. Is there a path where you could do that? Yeah, and it's largely key on the people. But I think we typically looked at it and said, and we've grown. I'd say we probably grow top line revenue 10% a year. But that's on the backs of largely the same people. We're also able, I think, as a small company, to keep pace with the market and the industry in terms of employee compensation. Mm-hmm. And that includes everything from, of course, your salary, but your time off. We have something called a gear allowance because we're very much in a gear thing. So everyone's got a certain gear allowance to buy things and go experience things. So I think we've stayed relevant with the market as a small group of benefits that maybe you can only get from a larger company. So I think that's helped retain people. But I think it's probably doable. But I think at each time one of those crossroads came, I think we, for a large part, we made the right decision and made it on behalf of the groups and just your day-to-day life. People might like it here, but they're super stressed because of their volume. I mean, that's not good either long term. So again, it's kind of, I think, retarded the growth potentially, but I think improved your work life professional balance. That,
oh my gosh, the engagement, the loyalty, the tenure, like just the real things that matter to employees nowadays. Like they want a company that's going to think of them too, not just as an employee, but they're thinking of me and my best interest. I love that.
And the contribution, I think, as as we engage now, younger and younger people as the years goes on, and what their motivations are, and I think one of the big things is just inclusion. You've got visibility into what the company's doing. It's not a sealed box of management team at the top just making decisions and trickling them out. Everyone's engaged, and I think that's been a benefit. And then the young people that are now with us for 10, 12 years, they're able to then also inseminate that down through new people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Jason and I, because that's they know the culture and the expectation. It's not an environment that lacks high expectation.
Yeah,
it definitely does, but also I hope at least that it's not mixed with this incredible fear of failure that can really paralyze some people.
And I think you would see a lot more turnover with some of your people if that was the case, of the fear of failure, if they're just worried they're going to get in trouble for this. I know you guys are like high performing team, and you have a lot of really powerful people on your team, like Evie and stuff like that. Some amazing talent there for sure. And so I think it's so interesting to just see. I've known you guys for about 2 years now and watch you guys grow over that time, but also like interact with you when it comes to some of the brands we work with Mountain Standard and with War Road, and just that mentality of it. Trying to think where I was going with that, but I can't think.
That's great. I'll take the compliment. Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, any of the people I think that you guys have met, I hope you would, you'd leave going, that's just a person I like and a person I'd like to hang out with regardless of what we were doing. So
excellent. Well, if anybody is interested in knowing more about SidFactor or you or your culture and wants to reach out, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the website, although a little dated, as a creative firm, it's what it's like. Always the thing about the cobbler's kids have no shoes. Well, the creative firm that has a dated website, that's us. But you can get on there. You can go on there and go to info@SidFactor. I'm Eric, ERIC @ SidFactor as well. And So yeah, if anyone's interested in we do have an intern program, like I said, through Cincinnati. We've also had some other things, so that works. And if there's interest, whether it's personally or brand or whatever, either one of those, info@SidFactor comes to the team, as well as Eric at SidFactor. And I think the email is the best way to get in touch with us, but through the website.
Oh man, how cool! There are so many companies I've worked for. When I talk about culture and employee engagement with these employees, they're like, yeah, I like the way it was when I first started here. 15 years ago, when we were in one building and we all like had to share a desk and we were all in one table in the middle of this warehouse working from each other, and they lose something from that company. But it sounds like the real way to get that engagement, that high-performing culture, it comes from people who feel engaged and loyal and dedicated because of intentional tenets that put the employee at the forefront. Mm-hmm. And that really sounds like that's the kind of culture SidFactor has. That's so exciting that a company has made that a priority instead of growth, instead of revenue, instead of year-over-year profit. You know what I mean?
No, and I think that's...
Cool.
I've never heard that side of SidFactor. I've known SidFactor for 2 years or so. Mm-hmm. So I've seen them and got to see their work, and they perform some amazing things, like some really cool products. And to hear like they've turned down potential clients, they've turned down opportunities because they didn't think it would work out with their team. Uh-huh. That says a lot about Eric and Jason and how they manage their teams. Is they make those decisions to better the team, not to make more money. Uh-huh. And I love that.
Yeah, I like the kind of inside look at what to consider when you want to grow. Like he's like, take a step back. Where did you come from? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be the type of company you came from? Now that is a question that's going to put you in a different frame of mind.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that's deep. I'm thinking back to like.
I'll sober you up real quick.
I'm thinking back to like, when I started at Touchstone, it was this. And companies change. I'm not saying they're going to stay the exact same every year, but that's something that you have to keep is that thread of who you are. And I know Touchstone's done a lot. I mean, hiring you was a big part of that to keep who we are as a company, because that means a lot to the people who work here. Mm-hmm. And I have friends who have worked in bigger companies where they're a cog in the machine and they're just a piece of the whole entire giant puzzle that their company is. Yeah. And they don't get that same experience that we get at a smaller company. And so him like focusing on trying to figure that out and figure out which steps to take when they get to those crossroads to make sure that they keep that core there. That's good management. And that's a good lesson to realize like not everything is about just growing. There's a lot bigger things you can do in life than just grow the number of people on your team. If you grow individual people, that's a lot more valuable than having more people on staff. Mm-hmm.
Recurring theme: businesses don't grow, people do.
Yep.
Big theme there. And also taking a step back further, the way that they adopted those tenets was like they met the wall, they met the hurdle, they evaluated thoroughly and made a decision and stuck with it. Like, okay, we're getting ready to hire people. Is it more important that they have the skill set we need, or is it more important that they are filling opportunity gaps or filling knowledge gaps in our team? Mm-hmm. Are they filling talent gaps? And are they going to work with us well? Are they interested in our business? Okay, we're just going to hire good people that fit first. Tenet, man, like in concrete. Yep. What's the next thing he said? We want to keep it, we've got the opportunity to grow. Are we going to do it? Wait a second, let's stop. Thoroughly vet where we are. Take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Okay, we're going to keep a small team in concrete. Yep. Next thing. So they have stuck with their decisions over the years, and that seems to grow the kind of foundation that builds this high-performing culture.
Yeah, and I think the big thing about growing this culture is you put the people first. Always put them first. And I mean, that's why they're adding more people on, is they had them in as interns, had them figure out if they vibe with the culture. Yeah. And now they're going to hire them full time. And I think that's such a unique way to figure out if someone's going to work for your team or work on your team is to test run them. Give them a test run through an internship or through a program, whether that's a contract work where they work for you for 3 months or whatever, or you have them for an entire summer to see how they vibe with the team, which I think is more important than any skills that they have. If they can fit in the team and they're high performers, that's worth a lot more than if they're super, super good at the job.
Yeah, that is a great example of being #intentional, right? We want to hire somebody we know who fits. Okay, then let's do the work to make sure they fit. Let's bring them on as an intern. Are we going to hire somebody we haven't had on as an intern? It doesn't sound like that's their plan right now.
Yeah.
And that is very intentional because they thoroughly vet to make sure that that's the best move for them. So intention is another thing that I really pulled from what he was able to offer us.
And I really do think that's a unique thing about SidFactor and sort of the way that they've grown and developed over the years. I really love their company. We've worked with them professionally, and I've got to visit them a few times. So it's really cool to see their culture and to hear the background of where it came from.
So if you'd like to know more about SidFactor, we'll leave their contact information in the description of our YouTube video. And if you have a suggestion for future people we could interview to pick their brains about what makes their company so successful, go ahead and leave a comment on that YouTube video too. Search for Create, Inspire, Repeat, SidFactor, and you'll find that video on there. And please like, share, subscribe so that you get the next videos when they come out every 2 weeks.
And if watching isn't your thing, we're on every podcasting app, whether Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you like to listen.
I like to listen on Google Podcasts. Is it on there too?
It's on there too. Awesome. I prefer Spotify.
Also, we've got some cool sneak peek stuff over on Touchstone Life on Instagram. So you get to hear about a cool new thing we've just announced, and it's going to be so cool. So neat.
Excited.
We're not going to tell you about it. You've got to go find it. So if you want information, you can find us on Instagram. That's the sneak peek into our culture.
Touchstone Life.
Yep. And then we're on Facebook, TMG Ideas, and also tmgideas.com. I think that's it for us.
All right.
Anything
Thanks
else?
for Nope.
Nope. Okay. Sweet. Well, thanks for listening to
Create, Inspire, Repeat.